So let's get into our other topic, and I think that we're going, and I've said it before, I think we're going to disagree on this. We've had some talks about this in the past, but let me tell you, if there is a team heading into 2016, Texas college football team, that I think could be on the verge of a leap, could be the team that everybody's sleeping on that could end up being that team next year.
Yeah.
Like last year, think about 2013. Or 2014, rather.
Okay. Yeah.
It's TCU, right? Coming off of a really bad year. Nobody was really expecting a whole lot. Can they even hang in the Big 12? Is Trevon Boykin the guy, you know?
Right.
And then they explode and they have a fantastic season. They win a share of the Big 12 title.
Right.
2015 in the state, it was Houston.
Yeah.
Houston, you know, okay, new coach. I mean, yeah, they got Greg Ward Jr. and a couple of nice defensive players. But, I mean, with a new coach basically taking his first head coaching job in Tom Herman, can he really turn around? Boom, 13-1 Peach Bowl victory. So who's going to be that team right now that everybody's sleeping on, that nobody thinks is going to do a whole lot of much next year? I think it's the Texas Tech Red Raiders.
Yeah, you do.
I am buying stock right now in the Texas Tech Red Raiders, and I'll tell you why. First of all, you've got Cliff Kingsbury, who is a noted quarterback guru.
Yes.
And a noted offensive wizard.
Yes.
Just go ask Texas A&M with Johnny Manziel.
Sure.
A noted offensive wizard, and for the first time...
Sunglasses enthusiast.
Yes. And for the first time since he's arrived at Tech, you can say he's got his guy.
For sure.
He's got his quarterback. He's got Patrick Mahomes.
Right.
And I've been a big believer in Patrick Mahomes since he was at White House. I think that he is a superstar, and I think he's the next big thing in the state. I think that they've got a number of interesting guys on the outside that even though they lose Jakeem Grant, they've got guys like Dylan Cantrell, like Judean High, like Ian Sadler, like Reginald Davis.
Right.
They've got a lot of different weapons offensively. Yes. If you want to poke holes in this argument from an offensive perspective, you'd say, oh, they're losing, I believe, 3 of their 5 offensive linemen, including, or 4 of their 5 offensive linemen, including LaRaven Clark, who you and I have gone on and on and on, might have been the best lineman in the state. Well, maybe not named Spencer Drango, for the past 2 years.
Yes,
he's been phenomenal, and I don't disagree with that. But I think that they've got good guys that they have recruited well for this system coming in that can step up and make plays on their offensive line. But the real reason I'm buying Texas Tech, and this is where I'm going to lose you.
I don't know.
I think the defense is ready for a step forward. They're bringing back 7 starters. They were very young last year. Even though they lose Pete Robertson, they are bringing back a lot of really, really, really intriguing guys, especially in the secondary and especially in the linebacker position. I think, and really, the best thing that they have going for them is that they didn't change anything for once. Sure. They were on some incredible run. I don't have the numbers in front of me, but it was like 8 defensive coordinators in 9 years. I'm not kidding. It was something insane.
It was staggering.
They, ever since the end of the Mike Leach era, they've basically had a new defensive coordinator every year. Right. Now, they've got a guy in David Gibbs who is a proven winner, a guy who can build a defense. Just go ask Houston. Yeah. They have a guy who can build a defense who's starting to bring in his guys, and when you bring back 7 returning starters plus a lot of backups who got some very good experience last year, if they can just stay healthy, I think the Tech defense can go from miserable, which is what it was last year, miserable, to decent.
Right.
And with that offense over there, with that flamethrower of an offense that Tech's going to roll out there like they always do, I think that's good enough to vault them at least in the top half of the Big 12 and maybe even higher.
Okay. All right.
Go ahead. Tell me I'm wrong.
No, you're not wrong. I would just, when we have these conversations, this is how my conversation always starts. As the guy in the room who watched every minute of Tech's season last year. The inconsistency is still troubling. I am absolutely buying At this point, Kingsbury as a quarterback kingmaker.
Okay.
And that's an argument I've been making even more since A&M has struggled, right? A&M, Manziel was otherworldly, but even still, he didn't have the same season once Kingsbury left.
Yeah.
Number one. Case Keenum, still a quarterback in the NFL, probably on the heels of what Kingsbury did with him. And now we see him with Mahomes, like you said. I think on a national level, people started to pay attention to what Pat was doing at the end of last season, and it was a lot of fun to see all these people start to pay attention to Tech football again, right? I'm with you. The pieces are there to have a breakout season. I just don't trust them.
You just don't trust
It's hard for me to trust them. I watched what they did against Kansas. It was hard to watch.
Now, the one thing I'll say about that Kansas game, Tech has a bad habit of playing with their food against Kansas. This has happened for years. Go ask Tech fans.
Right.
They hate going to Lawrence.
Right.
Because they hate going to Lawrence because even though Kansas is bad and was bad, for some reason, whenever they see the red and black across across the field, they play the game of their lives.
Right. Okay, that's fair. That's
one thing.
So I get that.
Okay.
I'm emotionally wounded, and that makes me hesitant from watching them, right? It is difficult.
Emotionally
wounded from watching Texas Tech football. I will say I agree with you on the defensive thing, though not entirely because of your premise. I do think it's great that Gibbs is back for another year, and I do think they'll get better. But I also look around the conference, and I go, which of these offenses is getting better next year? A lot of them are due for a step back, either because of graduation or whatever the circumstances might be. I think Baylor will still be Baylor. We don't know what TCU will be with Kenny Hill.
A bit of a mystery.
We're pretty optimistic, I think, at this point. We know Oklahoma will be tough. We're not sure about Oklahoma State. They'll be great, but to what degree? Where will their holes be? We don't know.
And really, those are probably the four teams that you have to pay the most attention to in the Big 12. All due respect to Texas, we don't expect this giant renaissance offensively for Texas.
Exactly.
Kansas State is Kansas State every year. Kansas doesn't look like they're going to be a whole lot better next year. Iowa State is Iowa State, even with Matt Campbell in the mix. But I think you're right. I think that the offenses in the Big 12 are almost across the board look like they're going to take a step back. Oklahoma maybe being the big exception.
Right. And we've had this discussion, is this the year for Tech or is it the next year?
Maybe.
Right. But I actually think it's going to be harder for them to be the breakout team 2 years from now than it is for this upcoming season.
I think
and just for the reason I just said. By then, a lot of these teams that may need to take a step back this year because of new blood will have a year of that new blood under their belts, and I think they'll be hitting their stride. Especially, you look at those teams in the middle, Kansas, Iowa State, Kansas State. I don't think they're getting great this season. But another year, Matt Campbell another year at Iowa State, David Beatty another year at Kansas. Maybe not world beaters, but problems for every team.
Let me tell you, also, they get Oklahoma at home.
Right.
They get Texas at home.
Yep.
They get Baylor on a neutral site
in
the week of Thanksgiving, basically, the day after Thanksgiving. I think the 25th, I think that is. They're at TCU. That's tough. They're at Oklahoma State. That's tough, and it's been a bit of a bugaboo for Tech.
Sure.
But overall, I think that the schedule sets up pretty well.
Yeah.
At Arizona State in a non-conference game is going to be super intriguing.
For sure.
But I think there is a decent chance that Texas Tech is the breakout team in 2016. If only because I'm buying what David Gibbs is selling.
Right.
I think that last year he stepped into a situation where they were under-talented and under-experienced. Now I think they have more talent, including a number of, I think, freshmen who could come in and play right away.
Potentially.
And I think they've got experience in his system, and I think they're ready to go. I think that's why I'm buying Texas Tech stock.
I get it.
Maybe it'll crater.
That is the worst run defense I have ever seen in my life.
And we've talked about this here and off the air about how this is a high variance team.
Absolutely.
That it would not surprise me next year if they went 9-3.
Right.
It also would not surprise me
if they went 6-6.
Yeah. If they went 6-6. Yeah. I think that they are a very high variance team, but I think there is plenty of reason to feel optimistic, especially when you look across the conference and who's bringing a quarterback back.
I totally agree with most of that.
Okay.
I am still leaning on the side of high end of the variance.
Well,
I am optimistic for a lot of reasons.
And you're also a scorned lover.
I feel like because I had to watch so much of it, a lot of it still is fresh in my mind.
I guess I watched a lot too, but I guess when I was watching that defense, I was like, yeah, they're bad, but a lot of it's because they just they're new to the system and they just haven't had a cohesive year-to-year experience. And again, I go back to it. They don't have to be great.
No,
they don't have to be TCU circa Rose Bowl.
If they make the kind of improvement that A&M made under Chavis in 1 year, that's significant.
If they do that and the offense remains what it is or even takes a measured step back.
Sure.
I think that Tech could be the team in 2016.
It's like, but I still go back to like watching the Texas game, and that was like their masterpiece of futility against the run game. Right?
It was.
And
it was. Yeah. What's the opposite?
In my head.
What's the opposite of a masterpiece?
I don't.
Turd sandwich.
Turd sandwich. Sure.
It was their turd sandwich of a.
I guess.
So,
look, I'm optimistic.
Like I
want them to have a great year because I'm always for each of these teams making a run when the time is right.
Yeah.
Right. I want one of these teams to emerge when they've got all the pieces in place, when it feels like the momentum is there, and to take not only the state but the country by storm. I want that to happen for each of these programs at some point. It seems like the pieces are there. I'm just hesitant to get excited.
You're gonna hop on board,
nervous.
man. I'm aboard the bandwagon. I'm aboard the Texas Tech bandwagon for 2016.
I'm aboard it. I'm just kind of like I'm looking out the back. I'm like, do I need to jump before it gets going too fast? I don't know.
This thing's picking up steam. I don't know.
I like this wagon. It seems to have all the things I like, but I'm a little concerned about the speed it's going.
But the fact
it.
that the wagon has turned over on you before makes you very upset.
Yeah, like I still remember watching one of those wheels spin off and going, "Oh no, what do I do now?"